An ethical dilemma, academic dishonesty.
And the overall question is, how does academic dishonesty affect overall education quality? Our structure will involve researching and understanding of the problem, previous solutions offered to solve the problem, how we can solve this issue, how to implement the solutions, and interviewing individuals on their point of view and experiences regarding academic dishonesty. Interviewees are Ms. Walker, parent of VPCPS students, Ms. Harris, an elementary school teacher, Dr. Bergen, a middle school assistant principal, Mr. Pratt, a high school social studies teacher, Ms. Duncan, a high school English teacher, Ms. Tomeo, a legal studies academy guidance counselor, and Mrs. Phillips, legal studies academy coordinator. Will involve the problem, the perception, alternatives and options, solution, implementation, and closing thoughts.
Section 1. The problem.
The problem? Academic dishonesty, misconduct, fraud, and integrity are all related concepts among students or any learning institutions. Therefore, defining the problem is really an actions on part of the students that are against the norms of a school, university, or learning institution. Dr. Bergen, the middle school assistant principal, said that his definition is based on the premise that learning is the most important goal of education. Thus, academic dishonesty is falsifying measures of or evidence of learning which can be done by either students or teachers. Furthermore, Ms. Walker, VPCPS parent, defined academic dishonesty as portraying someone else's work as their own. However, oftentimes it is a student who is a perfectionist and extremely worried about not knowing every answer. In addition, Ms. Harris, the elementary school teacher, suggested that it is often those who are hardly participating in class discussions, are inattentive, or not confident in their academics.
There are a few key examples of academic dishonesty and a few basic types. Examples would be a student working from home does a test on their school-issued Chromebook but has the notes open on a personal device. Or 3 students in class set up a way of tapping their feet to communicate answer choices to each other like Morse code. I know it seems odd, but that is an example. Other examples, students copying passages, falsifying citations, and much more. And there's 2 basic types of academic dishonesty. The basic ones and then complicated ones. Basic ones would be such as direct plagiarism, cheating on a test, or copying homework from a peer, those sorts of things. Things you might see in a high school setting, high school or middle school setting. But there's a few other complicated types that you might more find at a collegiate or even a professional setting, such as bribery, if you are bribing a professor to let you pass, or bribing someone to provide false information. Further, fabrication of data, such as completely falsifying sets for a study. And another complicated would be duplicating submissions, where you submit the same assignment, same document or essay for 2 separate classes or purposes. Now, Ms. Angelique Phillips, the LSA coordinator, provides us a few key examples highlighted. Number 1, cheating, plagiarism, misrepresentation. 2, giving or receiving of any unauthorized aid or assistance, or the actual giving and receiving of unfair advantage on any form of large work. Falsely claiming authorship to include copying language, structure, idea, and thought of another and representing someone else's work as your own. Now, the biggest examples you would see based off those types are cheating on tests, copying answers on assignments, and plagiarizing whole papers. That is a large issue with students. In the internet age, they will copy large swaths off a research paper online or a website, and they will paste it onto their own assignment. It is a prevailing issue currently. 95% of high school students participate in some form of academic dishonesty. 36% of undergrads admit to paraphrasing or copying internet without footnoting. 24% of graduate students report having plagiarized multiple lines of a text from an internet source, with another 25 to 38% of undergrad and graduate students reporting doing the same for a written text. Various other percentages admit to falsifying sources, word-for-word copying, or turning in other students' work. Now, on this graph here, if you may see it, it lists on the x-axis total word count and on the y-axis plagiarism rate. As you can see, there is a small correlation. As total word count increases, the plagiarism rate tends to increase, with the very largest word count at 2,000 having around a 70% plagiarism rate. The image is from a Duke University School of Medicine town hall on academic dishonesty. As you can see in the image, 11% of people at this town hall said that it was a very large problem. 34% said a slight, and 55% a moderate problem in the scientific community. This is a very large issue, as everyone at this town hall did agree there was some issue of plagiarism. Further, in the scientific community, plagiarism can lead to falsifying sources, falsifying data, and therefore, going forward, a loss of human life. See here are numbers from the Penn State cases of academic dishonesty and their differences from regular learning to virtual learning. The cases of cheating between regular and virtual learning have increased by 72%, and the cases of unauthorized collaboration or turning in another person's work has increased by 85%. This is at a collegiate level, with Penn State University what is often seen as a very well-off college and university. See here are the results of academic dishonesty, including a destroyed student reputation in college, which would include expulsion from a university and even a barrier to applying to a different university. A second would be a destroyed professional reputation in the workplace, including termination and complete destruction of employability in respectable positions. A destroyed academic reputation would be number 3, including termination by the university and a ruined reputation which can follow for the offender's entire life. Now 5 is a monetary repercussion under existing copyright laws. If someone plagiarizes or completely copies word for word from a document or a essay, book, what may, they can face monetary repercussions due to the copyright. And finally, it can result in a loss for industry, or worse, a loss in human life. This would be in issues of scientific plagiarism if someone plagiarizes results. For instance, if Pfizer falsified their results for their vaccine effectiveness, that may lead to a loss in human life, as people get the vaccine and believe that it is 100% safe, as it's almost 100% right now. However, with the falsification of data, academic dishonesty, many people could lose their lives from that. As we can see here in an article on K through 12 academics, in terms of loss of learning, provided by Ms. Angelique Phillips from the Legal Studies Academy Counselor, it reads, ultimately, academic dishonesty undermines the academic world. It interferes with the basic mission of education, the transfer of knowledge, by allowing students to get by without having to master the knowledge. Furthermore, academic dishonesty creates an atmosphere that is not conducive to the learning process, which affects honest students as well. When honest students see cheaters escape detention, it discourages student morale, as they see rewards for their work cheapened. Now, moving on from that quote, it does make a point. When honest students see cheaters escape detention or get by cheating, these honest students will then want to catch up. They will want to bypass and go beyond what these cheaters are doing, and to do that, they must also cheat.
Section 2. Perception. To begin with a quote from Miss Barbara Duncan, a high school English teacher, "I think academic dishonesty does not affect the quality of education provided, but it does affect the quality of education received. Teachers work hard to provide learning experiences that are rigorous, challenging, creative, and will set them up for long-term success. And students only harm themselves if they cheat, plagiarize, etc. Do I think it is rampant? Yes, but it varies from student to student how much it actually affects the quality of their individual education. In some ways, it has forced teachers to work harder to create learning experiences that are more unique and creative, etc., so that they can anticipate how students will cheat and create assignments where they can't." In Mr. Nicholson's interview with Mr. Aaron Pratt, a high school social studies teacher, he asked how bad was cheating and plagiarism in past years. His response: "It ebbs and wanes. You create whatever system you want. Kids don't want to cheat. It's more of a time issue. They tend to cheat when I give a ridiculous amount of work." Growing up, we're taught that cheating is morally incorrect. Thus, psychologically, we act in the most honest way possible. However, it's important to consider how ethical based decisions and choices and identities are connected. But depending on how a scenario may be framed, it can show that there is a division between character and choice. Such as someone who may have cheated is not necessarily a cheater, or someone who has lied is not necessarily a liar. Often in the present, verbs and nouns go hand in hand when characterizing who someone is, assuring that someone as someone who lied is a liar, therefore a faulty individual. Moreover, how utilizing a characteristic exemplifies who someone is, such as, instead of asking for a donation for a charity, asking if they wish to be a donor. In the same interview, Mr. Nicholson asked Mr. Aaron Pratt, the high school social studies teacher, "Do students you know are cheating generally do better or worse in class overall?" His response was that it catches up to them eventually, whether in class themselves or on the AP exam. As long as you're participating and doing the vast majority of your work, you'll finish with a B or higher. Grades are subjective. At the end of the day, it's easy to keep track of cheating on a big project, but harder in an AP class going fast. Recognizing cheaters. Ms. Sherry and I asked Mrs. Angelique Phillips, Legal Studies Academy Coordinator, and Miss Adrienne Tamayo, Legal Studies Academy Guidance Counselor, when a student commits academic dishonesty, is it obvious at first, or does it take time to realize, such as keeping a close eye on them? Mrs. Phillips answered, "That's a tough question. In some cases, it's clear. Often you find this with plagiarism or cheating on a test, copying homework answers, or other smaller assignments may take more time to identify." Ms. Tomeo, on the other hand, answers, "It can be hard to approach a student regarding academic dishonesty if there is no evidence or proof. It is easier to spot academic dishonesty when a student copies or plagiarizes other work. If a teacher reads an essay and sees similar sentences or themes in a different essay, they typically compare the two essays." In Mr. Nicholson's interview with Mr. Aaron Pratt, the high school social studies teacher, he asked an interesting question about virtual learning. The question of whether or not he's noticed if virtual learning has increased academic dishonesty in any way, and whether or not students have, well, how have students performed compared to past years. Mr. Pratt's answer was, "Anytime you take something from another source online, you better expect kids to be able to find the answer sheet online. It's my fault if kids online are able to cheat without direct supervision. On a whole, the gap between the students succeeding and failing are growing. Some freshmen are saying they don't have to work as hard. Some students aren't paying attention and fall behind because they don't know how to do the work. The virtual setting and pandemic has exposed some of the flaws with our current method of teaching." Abiding by the honor code. We interviewed a bunch of teachers about this one question: are more students inclined to follow the honor code? And there's three answers that we want to highlight. Starting with Mrs. Caroline Walker, a VBCBS parent, "I think there is definitely a bigger chance of cheating online because students aren't as worried about an extra set of eyes on them. Having a time limit seems to be a big deterrent." Next, Ms. Adrienne Tomeo, the Legal Studies Academy guidance counselor, who says that I think students do abide by the honor code, especially now with the advanced technology. Teachers and administrators can see what they are doing on their computers, and we can tell if a student is cheating on a test. Finally, Dr. Alex Bergman, a middle school assistant principal, who says that I believe students are more likely to cheat because they feel like they can't get caught. It's safer in most cases, they are probably right. However, are they really cheating or are they being more resourceful?
Ms. Phillips, Legal Studies Academy coordinator, stated that I think abiding by the honor code, depends on the student. I am not sure if students are more or less motivated to cheat online. Again, I think it's situational. I think students feel that the only way to remain competitive for opportunities beyond high school is to cheat, which really isn't true at all. Character and integrity are by far more important than GPA.
Section 3, Alternatives and Options.
So in our interviews, we wanted to cover some of the policies that already exist in Virginia Beach City Public Schools, because it's not like this is a brand new issue, really. Our school system has already taken steps to address this. So here we have professionals speaking on Virginia Beach policy in general. Dr. Bergen, who is a middle school assistant principal, and Ms. Tomeo, who is a study here at the legal guidance counselor here at the Legal Studies Academy, and just speaking on the ramifications of what academic dishonesty means in Virginia Beach. And we can also see this issue being covered in different levels of the academic, we have primary, secondary, and tertiary education. So you can see at really every level of education, this can be seen as an issue. In past violations and redresses, you can see here Operation Varsity Blues, which was actually an FBI investigation into a large cheating scandal that took place, in which more affluent parents would pay, at times, millions of dollars to alter their students' academic background, whether it's their testing scores or their participation in athletics, to make them more a better candidate to go to these more prestigious institutions. And over 50 arrests were made, so it's one of the largest academic dishonesty scandals of all time. And that was really important to just show how systemic this issue is. It's not just students cheating, but parents, because it's such a big issue. Also, in the pandemic, we've seen a rise with just it being harder to monitor students from home, since we're all on our individual devices, and how easy it is to take the easy way out and cheat when you're just at home on your device. And also in these higher institutions, we see large amounts of students being expelled for cheating. It was one instance of 70 within one class being expelled, and that's not even all the students found cheating. It was just the 70 that were expelled, and many more were suspected of cheating, actually. So those are just some past examples. This is another quote from our interview with Ms. Tomeo, speaking on just how cheating has changed now in this virtual setting, and how the limitations of an honor code are on actually enforcing cheating, and how we need to look at what's actually causing this cheating rather than just having an honor code in place, but how to make the honor code an actual plausible solution. So in this study done by the National Research University in Moscow, researchers found 6 modes of justification that are overall arc what drives students to cheat, and most motivations fall under these 6 categories. And those modes are inspiration, domestic, reputation, civic, market, and functional. Under the inspirational mode, it's really how attached the student is to the subject. Like, if they're emotionally connected, if it inspires them, if it's motivating. In the domestic mode, it's more of the values instilled in you in the home, whether you think cheating is acceptable or unacceptable based on really environmental factors, how you were raised, and what your parents taught you. The reputation mode, which is based on like how you perceive the repercussions to be. If you think you will lose status from this, or if you think you will advance your status from this. Really just how you are perceived. The civic mode, and that one covers like if you will be perceived to be a bad or good person based on if you do or don't share your work. Really like trying to help your other students, or if you think you'll hurt your fellow students by participating in cheating. The market mode, which is like cost-benefit analysis. Will cheating on this advance me further? Is it worth the risk to cheat on this assignment? Do I have time to do this assignment without cheating? And the industrial or functional regime is basically looking at, is the information in this course worth my time? Is it contributing to my future career? Do I really need that information? So under those 6 categories is where most cheating falls. And what the study found was that each justification would respond to methods to prevent it differently. So methods to prevent cheating that might work for some that cheat based on the integrity mode may not work for those who are cheating based on the reputation or functional mode. So really, what these researchers recommended was really targeting them all differently. So they stated that to discourage students from cheating by creating negative emotional associations with dishonest behavior would greatly help cheating for those who are impacted by the cost-benefit analysis version. And they gave recommendations for how just that we can't look at it as a blanket issue. We really have to assess the motivations for cheating rather than just trying to make it harder, because you won't stop everyone, really. And the main finding from this research was that student engagement is the best cure for cheating. And also in this Baruch City of New York University research paper, they found that 58.3% of students were found to be participating in forms of academic dishonesty in 1969, which increased to 97.5% in 1989, which is a big jump, really. So if you imagine now in 2021, it can't go up much from 97.5, but still substantially more. And they also found that 61% of students would not report when they witnessed or knew that someone was cheating on an assignment. And 86% of students and faculty suspected academic misconduct.
Section 4. Solution.
Hey everyone, it's Max, and now we have the solution. So, based on the alternatives and options, how can we reduce academic dishonesty? Well, creating negative emotional associations with cheating and dishonesty to discourage students from doing it. Secondly, take the time to motivate students and make them passionate about a subject. According to the article, Academic Dishonesty, Fear, and Justifications, a student who is more motivated is less likely to cheat. And third, engage students in the classroom. Students who are more engaged are more likely to ask the teachers questions rather than look up the answers. In the words of Mrs. Phillips, it is more about developing a culture around the honor code. I also think we need to talk about it more in classes and develop a stronger community where we hold others accountable. Similarly, in the words of Mrs. Duncan, this is difficult, and especially during this pandemic. I think a lot of it has to do with the culture of the school. A culture where students take pride in their education and learning new things. A culture where students take responsibility for their own learning. I think that it's very hard to do in high school. I think a lot of the responsibility in some ways falls on the teacher to try to make it harder for students to cheat. It shouldn't be that way. It should be that the students don't feel like they have to cheat in order to do well. But that leads into a whole discussion of the rat race of GPA and the college admissions process. Next up, we have social solutions. So, spreading awareness. One of the best social solutions to help put an end to academic dishonesty is to spread awareness. A simple yet effective action would be to spread posters and signs around the school. Many student committees and clubs could take part in this action, and as a result, the entire school would become aware of this movement. Once students become aware, they are more likely to think about a poster or sign they may have seen regarding cheating the next time they feel inclined to do it. An administrative solution that will help prevent academic dishonesty is the educating of students on what it truly is. Teachers and staff should prioritize teaching and informing their students on what cheating and plagiarism entails, as well as teaching them the consequences. The more the student understands and can comprehend these things, the less likely they are to do it. Now, a social/administrative solution. Seminars or informational meetings. Staff and even student committees or clubs can put together presentations for the rest of the school to come watch. Now, due to the fact with this pandemic, a way to have these seminars and informational meetings could be over Zoom or in small groups. These presentations would explain and review mainly the consequences and negative effects of academic dishonesty in order to steer or kind of scare students away from it. If all students come together to see these presentations, they will all be equally informed. Therefore, no student should think that another student will cheat, causing a decrease in academic dishonesty. So, like I said before, due to the fact that most students are attending classes virtually this year, cracking down on cheating will not be easy. However, it can still be decreased greatly. So, first off, teachers should assign timed assessments. This will prevent students from having time to look up the answers while being virtual. For example, if a teacher assigns a 20-question test with only 20 minutes to complete it, students will not have time to cheat because they will only have 1 minute per question. Number 2, monitor the screens of those taking assessments. Using the program securely, teachers should monitor the screens of students taking any form of assessment to discourage them from cheating. Not only will this discourage them from cheating, but teachers will be able to see if they actually are cheating. Number 3, push students to keep their cameras on while taking assessments. If a student must keep their camera on their face while taking an assessment, teachers will be able to tell if the student is looking around, looking at outside sources such as their phones or notes. However, this part of the plan kind of requires teachers and students to both do their parts. Students to do their part by keeping the camera on their face, and teachers do their part by monitoring the students' cameras. Lastly, so after reviewing alternatives, options, and other solutions, that in order for this plan to work, the last but most important step would be to simply educate the students. Teachers must take it upon themselves that if students are cheating, it is due to their failure to educate them properly. Educating them should consist of teaching them the consequences of cheating, but while also educating them on the subject being taught. For example, offering one-on-one help and engaging the students, simply teaching the students, getting them motivated and engaged in the subject.
Section 5. Implementation.
A timeline to implement these solutions against this academic dishonesty are to begin young. So in elementary school, students will be introduced to the problem and be taught and educated that they shouldn't do this, and to avoid making it a habit. In high school, you reinforce the solutions that were taught in elementary school, so that they are so conscious of what they are writing and what they are doing, and their actions speak for themselves. In college or post-secondary school, you have been able to achieve the intended results of avoiding or minimizing academic dishonesty amongst students.
So let's take a look at the interview Ms. Shutak had with Mrs. Barbara Duncan, a high school English teacher, pertaining to implementing potential solutions. So Ms. Shutak asked Mrs. Duncan, as an English teacher, do you think plagiarism is more apparent in English than in other subjects? Her answer was yes and no. I think that with the internet, large chunks of any teacher's content are out there for students to find. But I do think that writing assignments in English, especially those tied to classic canon novels, that can be read in English classes, well, have been read in English classes for over 50 plus years, make it especially easy to copy and paste. But that goes back to my above point about trying to find new, interesting novels that aren't already on SparkNotes, or create different assignments that aren't a 5 paragraph theme analysis that can be copied straight from a free essay website. Now, the next question was, what do you do in your classroom to prevent plagiarism? Her answer, see above. I've also pretty much eliminated quizzes and tests both before the pandemic and this year. I focus much more on writing assignments and projects as a way to assess students' understanding. And for those writing assignments, I try to create ones that are unique enough that students hopefully wouldn't be able to plagiarize.
Okay, so the next slides are going to be the who, what, where, when, and why who are involved in the implementation of the solution. The who is going to be the students, teachers, administrators, and parents that are involved, and students in particular have to be reminded of things like not sharing their assignments and assuming that all things are expected to be completed individually and not with partners. And make sure to read the syllabus because that is important with academic dishonesty, and always seek clarification if you have any questions about any assignments or if you can work with a group. So the what of the implementation would be educating students on the issues, because in order to implement the solutions, the students need to be aware of the problem and the repercussions of their actions, which really comes from spreading awareness, which can be done through seminars and posters, just to make sure students know. When is going to be the beginning of school years and before important exams would be especially important, just to have a constant reminder of academic dishonesty and the repercussions of your actions. The where the implementations could come into place, obviously at school would be really important, and at home and with online school, I think there should be more implementations coming through with academic dishonesty and the awareness of it through online school, which have been really big. And how to implement the solutions would be through seminars, and if possible bringing individuals who have had serious academic issues and plagiarism especially come to hand and really talk about like what they've been through and how that has affected them. And the beginning of tests, sign contracts like we did in Miss Hill's class, and writing out the part of the honor code, posters throughout school and in classrooms just to really bring awareness, and evolving it in the academic culture, just not just doing the work to do the work and getting a good grade, but actually understanding what you're doing and not cheating to do it.
Section 6. Closing thoughts. But what is the connection between ethics and academic dishonesty? Well, the root of ethics is centered on a question of how one may live, if not the development of one's moral compass. Living ethically requires a continuous effort of studying our own beliefs and conduct, and striving to ensure that we and the institutions we help shape can live up to the standards that are reasonable and evidence-based. It is knowing that before one can do the right thing, one has to figure out what that right thing is, which is why our solution and implementation focuses on introducing the problem of academic dishonesty, reinforcing why academic dishonesty is an issue, and informs such as plagiarism can ruin one's future and the education that they receive. Finally, achieving our goal in post secondary education with a developed moral compass of understanding the consequences of academic dishonesty. To provide one last quote from Dr. Alex Bergren, a middle school assistant principal, education is really the only venue where we consider certain behaviors to be wrong. Traditional cheating might involve looking something up, using a program to assist with problem solving, asking a friend for answers, etc. In the work world, we call these things resourcefulness, doing research, collaborating. These are actual skills that serve people well in the real world. Plagiarism, and forms of it, however, is the one act of academic dishonesty that bridges across schooling and the real world. So we invite you to consider that when the source of academic dishonesty is hurting education quality, and it falls into the hands of a choice to either be honorable and maintain integrity or to be dishonorable and commit deception. What can you do to show the importance of integrity in our schools and in our communities? But more importantly, what is one small step you can take each day to be more ethical? Thank you.